Okay. So this book, sorry, I had to pause there for a second. I'm back. This book also presents a clear message on irony and the danger of the quest for power. So Victor Frankenstein, um, you will see he was trying to figure out how to bring life back from the dead. But let's talk about Mary Shelley first. So she was born in 1797 on August 30th. That's the day after my birthday. Her mother was, as said already, a famous feminist author who died 11 days after giving birth to Mary. Mary Shelley always wanted to be like her mom. Her mom influenced what she did in her own personal life. Her father was William Goodwin. He was a famous 19th century philosopher. So um, you can come in but shut the door. Sorry. Um, he would have influenced her as well because she became a very educated woman under her dad. He believed in the rights of the individual. So Mary Shelley, as an author, she had a passion for research. She kept current in all of the new um, updated ideas that were going on in the scientific world. She demonstrated her knowledge through her three narrators' quest for knowledge. She spent her life learning, and she was like a lifelong scholar who was interested in all the new things that were up and coming in the scientific world and in philosophy and discovery. She loved to surround herself with other educated people. Okay, so she got married at 15 years of age. I know that sounds really young to you guys, but during her time period, that was normal because the life expectancy was not really long. So people got married younger, had babies younger, that kind of thing. Um, so she married Percy Shelley, a disciple of William Goodwin and a famous poet. Despite being previously married to another woman, he convinced Mary to elope when she was 17. In the summer of 1816, whenever, or 2 years before she actually published her story, they went to visit Lord Byron, a writer also, and he wrote Dracula. The summer of 1816 had fall like weather because of a massive volcano in Indonesia. This is important because it sets the tone of what's going on whenever she creates this idea of Frankenstein. Because of the gloomy weather, Byron issued a challenge to his guests to create the best horror story. All right. So on March 19th, 1815, she recorded in her journal after the death of her first child, dream that my little baby came to life again, that it had only been cold and we rubbed it before the fire and it lived. So she had had her own personal circumstances, her own trauma that created this need for or desire, wishing that things could come back to life. And so when she was at Lord Byron's estate, after he had said, um, hey, let's come up with the best horror story, and whoever has the best one wins, she had this dream about a man who brings life back from the dead, which is galvanism. So it's this idea of bringing life from death. And this happened during the time that she wrote this. So she turns her ideas into a story and is encouraged by her husband to turn that into a novel. So she publishes that in 1818. Um, so the things that influenced her were the Romantic period, the Gothic novel, this idea of this sci-fi novel, and then scientific research and her own life and the death of her child. So the Romantic period, it was a time of political revolution and new ways of looking at the world. A time of expression. So Romanticism has a lot of imagery involved, and they look at nature. Britain was becoming the most powerful nation in the world, and it eventually created this sense that Britons were righteous, that they were better than everybody else. The Gothic novel, I've talked to you about the Gothic architecture. Let me move me real quick. Move me up here. Um, so these big estates were created. So we got rid of castles, and now we've got these big houses that look really kind of scary, like a haunted house. Um, and it represented a crumbling way of life. I gotta get it to click ahead. Sorry, it's freezing. There we go. Hero or heroine search for identity. The revolutions in America and France helped develop a culture of fear. Fear of imprisonment or entrapment. So during this time, there was this idea of like you could be buried alive. Fear of rape or personal violation. Fear of evil triumphing over good or chaos over order. The scientific research during that time, they begin to take a more dominant role in society. So we used to focus everything on religion, and everybody read the Bible and they went to church, and the Catholic Church had dominance over everything. Well, now we have this new school of thought that like science may have all the answers instead of God and the Bible. That they could tell us more about the future. So that started taking a precedence in our culture. The Industrial Revolution led to massive leaps forward in engineering, and science became a formal major at university. So many people started focusing on science-based careers or educations versus religious. And then also there was this concept of electricity and warmth, and that was with the galvanization thing that I was telling you about, of bringing life from death using electricity. Okay, so there was this scientist, and they believed he was a mad scientist, but he loved to study human anatomy. And um, also there was this revolution in chemistry, suggests that elements can be put together to create matter. But the ethics along this were like moving from God is in charge of everything, and fate is, that we are not in charge of our fate. This discovery in science and electricity led to these ideas of maybe we do have the ability to change fate, to be in charge of our own realities, and possibly even extend our lives. So all these questions started evolving. They were trying to find a way to bring dead back to life. If we had not had these scientists that asked these questions, then we would not have the discoveries that led to being able to have transplants and do surgeries that stop people from dying. Like all of those questions that were asked during the early 1800s are what led to the modern science that we have today. But Mary found all this stuff fascinating, and she was reading all of the experiments taking place during her lifetime. And there was this one guy named Luigi Galvani who believed that electricity was a life force. So if you think about like pacemakers, this is the same kind of theory now that he was thinking about then, that we could take electricity to create life, to prolong life. And so he would take dead animals and shock their bodies with high currents of electricity. And there was this one prisoner that was hung, and he got to experiment on the corpse, and he would um, hook it up to electronics or to electrodes and shock the body. And what would happen was it looked like it was coming back to life. So Mary knew about all of this research. Giovanni attached live wires to the corpse, 120 plates of zinc and 120 plates of copper, and he reported that the jaw began to quiver, the muscles contorted or like convulsed, and that the left eye actually opened. The muscles of the corpse were shocked to such a degree that the corpse appeared animated. And I've frozen myself again. Hold on. Gotta get it to work. All right, with Frankenstein, the sci-fi era began. This was like the first novel that created the sci-fi genre. It contained three elements essential for all sci-fi works. It was based on valid scientific research. It gives a persuasive prediction of what science might be able to achieve in the future, and it offers a humanistic critique of the benefits and dangers, so the goods and the bads, of achievement or scientific thought. So, like the ethics, what can turn out to be bad from exploring scientific research, and then also what we can get out of it that could be good. All right, so the name Frankenstein originates from Victor Frankenstein, the scientist, again, like I said, not the monster. Victor suffers the loss of many loved ones at an early age, and he creates his creature as a way to bring back the dead. I don't know what that says at the bottom. All right. So this story, Frankenstein, it is a frame story. All right. A frame story means like a story within a story. It starts out when you first read it, and you're going to read this week Robert Walton's letters. So he's writing letters back home. He is exploring the Arctic and trying to go farther north than anybody has ever gone before. And what happens is he meets Victor Frankenstein. And so he writes back home about this guy that he has met who is searching for someone, and it's very mysterious, and he wants to know more about him, and he lets Victor Frankenstein come aboard his ship. So those are the letters that you guys are going to read this week. That's when you're first introduced to the story. So then you will read Frankenstein's story to Walton. So what Victor Frankenstein tells Walton, you're going to read that part second, and then the other part within that. So it's Robert Walton's story to you guys, or to back home, the readers. And then you're going to read what Frankenstein tells to Walton. And then you're going to see the creature's perspective to Frankenstein. So that is what a frame story is. If you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, that is a frame story. If you've ever seen The Princess Diaries, so you start out in like one version of the story, and then it goes into another. So like Dorothy is in Kansas to begin with in The Wizard of Oz, and then she her head gets hit during the tornado, and she falls asleep, and she wakes up in this dream world in Oz, with the munchkins and everything. If you've ever seen the never ending story, this little boy, he ends up in the attic of a school, and there's a storm, and he opens this book, and then he like becomes part of the story, and so it's like a story within a story thing. There's lots of examples of it, but Frankenstein will be a frame story structure. All right, so it's also a doppelganger. All right, what that means is it's a double image. Both the creature, all right, so our monster, and Victor, they mirror each other in their efforts to destroy each other. So when we first meet Victor Frankenstein, he is on a quest to find his monster because he knows that he needs to destroy the monster because it has became more powerful than what he can control. He had no idea when he created the monster that it was going to be something that could turn into a terrible something that he could not hold on to or control anymore. So he's going after the monster, trying to kill it. The monster's going after him to try to kill him. So the doppelganger idea or double image represents a divided self. So Victor and the monster, they kind of mirror each other, or two alter egos that are more alike than different. All right, famous doppelganger. So we've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Bruce Banner, and the Incredible Hulk. Those are doppelgangers or images of the same thing, even though they're separate. Batman and the Joker, James Bond and Blofeld. I don't know that one all that well. Mario and Donkey Kong, Optimus Prime, and Megatron. Those are all examples of these double images of like one thing mirroring the other. Okay, so unlike the Hollywood stereotype, the creature in Frankenstein, he is intelligent, and his rage stems from his neglect from Victor. So Victor created him, and then he neglected him, and the monster's left to kind of fend for himself. All right. Themes in the novel, there's personal responsibility. So Victor Frankenstein creates this monster. And so we have to decide, is he responsible for this thing that he created, even when it became too big and he could no longer control it? There's also the responsibility to others. Are we responsible for the actions of others? So is Victor Frankenstein responsible for the monster? Is Walton responsible for anything that happens? And then there's also, can we reshape the past? So can we take away things that we've done? Those are all ideas that are questioned. And then back to the thesis. So again, this book is influenced by the Romantic period, scientific discovery during Mary Shelley's time period, her own life and the loss that she has encountered of her mother and her child. So the Gothic ideas that were kind of evolving during the Romantic period that she lives in, it all presents a clear message on the irony and the danger in the quest for power. And that's all I got for you.